Yeah, I think you do know. You probably almost forget, like, when you're in the team and you're constantly, you might be doing your morning check-ins, especially on camp. You'd fill that in, right?
We in the pot.
Yeah, so you weigh in a pot and you'd get given like how hydrated you were, and then also you'd give like a 1 to 10 on sleep, 1 to 10 on how you feel today. You're checking your heart rate every morning. That becomes quite normal. Like after I finished in the team, I had a bit like a period where I was feeling really tired. I think actually what happened is I went back to playing rugby. I broke my nose a few times. Couldn't really breathe through my nose, so I wasn't sleeping very well. But I kind of knew that something was different for me, and I went to the GP, and I was like trying to explain it, and I could kind of feel like she was just like, oh, like you're not sleeping well. I was like, this is in context of like someone who's like over the last 7 years. Yeah. Like, no, like I know my body. Like trying to explain, like I really do know it quite well.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think like that's something. I mean, that's something to do, like, even if you're not on a squad where you're going to get your wee tested or you're going to have, like, urea tests in the morning, like, you can still wake up every morning, take your heart rate.
Exactly.
And rate how you slept and rate how you feel. Is that something that you did before? Or more after? Or were there any changes like that you made?
I've got a spreadsheet now which goes back for months, and I just do it myself every morning. I will weigh myself once a week. I'll take my heart rate in the morning. I'll say my perceived shape. What else? My perceived shape, my quality of sleep, my heart rate, and then I'll have a column for each session, what the mileage was, what my average heart rate was, how it felt. I don't do it so much on the run up to racing because I don't want to think, oh my God, my heart rate's a few beats higher or something. But I think generally reporting key facts like that over time, you can see trends and you can look back and see, oh, actually for the past month, my resting heart rate has been creeping up or something. And then you can use that data. That's hard facts that I also often think, like, when you think, oh, is it me just making this up or is it real? If you've got a fact to back it up with, that's very helpful.
Yeah, because there is that voice in your head that will convince you otherwise. Yeah. And I've one of the times that I tore a disc in my back, I did it power cleaning. Ooh. And I felt it go, but then I was like, no, like it hasn't, like I'll finish the set. Yeah. So then I went out and finished the whole set on it. And then towards the end of the day, it gets worse and worse and worse. Yeah. So that's definitely like to have that to like back yourself up.
Yeah. And I think the other big bit of advice I would have, listening to your body and fueling yourself efficiently and suitably, they're two like preventative measures. But I think something that I definitely could have done better when I was coming out of the fatigue and rehab is to think my body doesn't know what split I'm pulling. It only knows how hard it's working. So don't think, oh, okay, I'm back on the ag, I can be pulling the numbers I was before. Be patient with it and be kind to your body. It doesn't know the number, it only knows how hard it's working. So it's only your ego that is being damaged. No one else really cares actually about the number. All that matters is that you're progressing and you're getting healthy again, and by getting on the erg and trying to smash out your UT2 that you would have done before just isn't a way to do it. So yeah, don't look at the number, just go off how you're feeling.
Definitely. And also, if you want to make sure that your career lasts as long as possible and you have as little interruptions as you can with injuries and other setbacks like fatigue, you have to be thinking long term. There's no use in thinking short term, like this next ergo, this next session. Sometimes it's hard not to, because you're just so bogged down in the day-to-day training where you think, oh shit, it's Wednesday, how am I going to get through to Saturday? But you got to be thinking like, how am I going to be feeling next season or the year after this? And am I going to burn out? How long's my career going to last? So,
and of course, like, there will be times where you've got a 2K ergo test and like, it's part of your selection. You wake up in the morning, you're like, oh, I don't feel great. You've got to just go for it. Like, you have to see, okay, this has been the priority for the past 2 weeks. Like, right now, it doesn't matter that I'm not feeling my best. I've just got to give it my best on the day. But no, you are right. Like, the longevity of your training behaviors are really, really important. And I like the idea of do 100% of the program at 80% rather than 80% of the program at 100%. Like, do it all.
Yeah, I had a great one when I had a coach said to me, like, you need to identify a couple of pieces a week,
Yeah.
a couple of sessions a week where you
Target
really want to
sessions.
perform. Because I was just trying to rinse myself on every single session, and that made a big difference. Because, like you said, then you're running 80% Monday, Tuesday into your half hour Wednesday, and then you fire for it. So yeah, that's something. And then coming back out of it, are there any other things that you like that you did, or anything else that you would change, like returning from illness?
So I've returned from illness twice. First time around, I got it a bit wrong and had to go back and then sort of learnt from my mistakes and redid it. So I first got ill in January 2022. I've had 2 sort of relapses of this fatigue. I tried to come back after being ill for April trials in 2022, but I came back way too quickly. And if you sort of imagine the triangle, you got to make sure you've got your base at the bottom so it can be a tall peak. And I didn't spend long enough at my base. I sort of got a bit too confident, thought, oh, great, I've got a season's best on this. And, you know, my UT2 is like only a few seconds off or whatever. And I just got a bit sort of carried away with myself and then started tumbling downhill pretty rapidly. So I then had to take a month completely off and work back up from the bottom again. And I think what I did really well second time round is build that base. I spent a lot of time training in a UT3 zone. So that's really quite light in comparison to what we would ordinarily do.
So we were talking, I've noticed that we didn't explain UT1, UT2. So it stands for Utilization Training Zone. So it's generally like a heart rate building zone. So UT1, the heart rate would be like 170, something like that.
Well, it depends on
the individual.
Yeah.
But then if you want to generalize, it will be anaerobic, and then UT2 will be aerobic.
About 150, 150. So UT3, would you be going on heart rate?
So that's probably about half of your 2K wattage, if anyone's interested.
Yeah, so I've got a simple Brooks mind. I would go with UT2, you should be able to have a conversation.
Yeah.
And then UT3 is even easier than that. So have a conversation, but, you know, be a bit breathy.
Yeah.
UT3, be able to have a consistent conversation with somebody. My heart rate zone for a UT3 would be average 150, 145. Yeah. I've got quite a high heart rate. A lot of others.
What's your resting heart rate? Morning resting heart rate?
About 54.
Okay, it's not that high.
No.
What's the lowest you know of?
Well, from a training perspective, when I start training, it shoots up.
Yeah.
But yeah, some of the girls, their resting heart rate's like 40.
Yeah.
Mine was in the 60s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God, your poor heart.
I know. But then I could get my heart rate up to 210 when I was doing a 2K, so.
You saw 210?
Mine was like between like maybe 48, 49. But then I wrote, again, this Adam Moffat, I remember, because we used to get told if your heart rate is 10 beats above normal, you definitely don't train. Like that was kind of the cutoff.
Right.
But his is so low that he came in one day and was like, oh, my heart rate's like 48. Like I shouldn't train today. I was like, what?
That's good for me.
Yeah, that's as low as mine gets. Yeah. What do you mean?
Yeah, well, it just shows how individual it is, really.
Yeah.
But no, I think spending more time in that UT3 zone and then progressing to UT2, then UT1, sort of really helps set up those key foundations.
So that's sort of like checking the ego, because to go down and row really light and see awful numbers and not be happy with it, like that's a head.
I think just turn the screen away.
Yeah.
You don't want to know.
Yeah.
You know, look at it at the end, and then you just got to think, okay, yeah, it's not what I was doing a year ago, but it's better than what I was doing last week, or it's better than what I was doing last month.
Yeah. You've got to measure yourself in a different way.
Yeah, definitely. And it's seeing your progression is very satisfying, because when you first start rowing, you know, you're getting PBs every week, you're seeing big improvements, and then you don't really get that for a long time. Like, I mean, I still haven't PB'd on my 30 minutes since 2019. Like, it's been a long time. But seeing those weekly improvements when you're returning from injury or illness is nice.
Yeah, going back to start mode again.
Yeah. And it's, you know, like having a setback like that is actually a real opportunity to address some of your weaknesses. you know, I didn't spend that much time, like, I feel like I'm talking a lot about Brooks, but we didn't spend that much time training in UT2 zones at Brooks. Like, everything was just really hard. So actually my UT2 wasn't that good. So I was using that time to come back from the fatigue. Actually, my UT2, there was a point where it was the best it had ever been. And, you know, just whether it's, I need to use this time to improve my trunk or improve my technical focus, or, you know, there's loads of things that you can, when you're coming back from something, you've actually got more time to focus on.
Yeah, there's always other stuff that you can do around the outside. And like definitely when you have support from physios and stuff, there's just little things you can get into. I generally think as well, like one of the things that I always used to remember is when someone got injured, being like, oh my God, that's such a bad time to get injured. Like I would never, like I'm so glad I'm not getting injured now. Like my first 6 weeks at Leander, when we were in the trial period, someone got like an infection in their hand, like all swelled up, and I was like, oh my gosh, like the worst time to get injured. But then he came back from it and that was fine. And then when I get injured, it always feels like there's never a good time. There's like absolutely never a good time. But the only thing worse than getting injured is coming back too soon and getting re-injured.
And then going back again.
It's so easy in hindsight because at the time as well, like you're always chasing, or for me at least, I was never like the standout person in the squad, so I always was kind of chased from the bottom, and then you get stuck in times. I know when I've had a really bad back when I was in the team, and I maybe haven't had some performances, or I've missed some stuff because of my back, and then like it maybe hadn't been feeling that good that week, but it's Wednesday and it's half-hour day and Jürgen's here, and being like, okay, well, like time to do some damage.
Whenever.
Like time to do some damage to myself, and like hopefully it's not too much.
Yeah.
But that again, I think it comes with experience, but also in the squad, like there's a certain, you can't really be a novice in your first year and walk up to your coach and be like, I'm just going on the bike today, mate, because I'm just not quite feeling it with my back. You know, like it takes a level of experience to know that.
Yeah.
But that was one thing when I went back to Leander from the squad. I wanted to finish my year out at Leander, but I've really, really been struggling with my back. So like I just said to Beachy, I was like, listen, and if it's not a test, I'm going to be on the bike. Yeah. And obviously he trusted that I was going to work and do the same thing on the bike that I would do on the row machine. And if anything, I probably got fitter because
bikes are savage.
Well, because there's no, what I realised is there's no rate caps. So when we do a low level ergo for an hour, you're capped at generally 20 at the most, 18, 19 or 20, whereas on the bike you're spinning at any speed you want. So
but I guess you still train in heart rate zone.
No, probably sometimes maybe, but normally I'd just probably be ragging myself.
Wasn't the thing back then.
So what would you try judge your intensity off of?
I guess I'd have like a watts, like an average watts that I'd want to produce, I guess. So like for like a UT2 session, I'd probably be trying to do like 250. Something like that.
UT2 or 250?
I don't know if I'm getting those figures wrong. I think like half hour was always the challenge, was to try and go over 300. Yeah, was to try and get through.
A half-hour test on the bike is horrific.
Yeah, it's horrible. Again, because it's not rate capped, so you can sprint.
Do you remember who's got the record for Leander bike half hour, or who used to have it?
Nick Middleton.
No, I think it was Charles Cousins with something like 400, maybe even 450 plus watts. It was absolutely disgusting.
He's a savage. I watched him do his 5K and go sub 6 in the last two. Like imagine doing 3K and then going sub 6.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's wild.
Ridiculous.